bigger is better, unless smaller is better. Alrighty guys, we got to look at the SilverStone LD03 Mini ITX case. Well, unfortunately for me, due to my lack of Mini ITX, I also needed an SFX form factor power supply, so SilverStone kindly contributed this as part of the reviews. We have the SX700-G. Now, guys, something I mentioned in my case review is was having some motherboard problems and my schedule is getting backed up and I just haven't had time to fix everything. So I wasn't able to do a full-on review where I get to do at least some voltage regulation and stuff, and really I'm not very set up well for that anyhow. So it's probably better for me on power supplies to do overviews anyway. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to do an overview, but there is some really important, well, it's kind of one really important factor and why you're going to desperately need this unit from SilverStone. So for starters, let's talk about one thing though, the cables that come with this. So SilverStone sticks with the ribbon cables, which have the flatter design, and while they can be a little unruly to manage, I found once again that I really like SilverStone's ribbon cable design. Now, because this is an SFX form factor power supply, things like the CPU cable and the motherboard 24-pin cable are shorter, which is great because you don't need all that extra cable in a Mini ITX system. But that does give it a little bit more unruly feel to it than some of the longer cables. But the way that SilverStone does their ribbon cables, once again, they keep them soft enough that they're pretty easy to route and manage. And with the flat cable design, it's kind of easy to tuck them and put them places to make them look a little neater, especially if you're not going to grab your own custom sleeved cables. So I'm still a huge fan of that, and this guy is great for that. The flip side of that is, yeah, we've got a 700 watt gold rated unit in a little tiny package. Trying to find anything with 700 watts in the SFX form factor is kind of difficult. And so even though this guy is going to run up somewhere around in the $160 to $170 range, it's kind of expected because there's just not a lot of competition on the front of this kind of form factor and 700 watts. Get a little more luck when you start looking at 650 watt, but you know, 700, it's kind of pushing that limit still, and so not many people have dived into that territory, but SilverStone has. But there's one really key feature about this power supply that really helps it stand out. SilverStone talks about like power density, and that's the idea of how much wattage you can fit in a small package. So you basically take the height, width, and depth of the unit, figure out what the volume is, divide that by watts, or you know, however they decide to do that, and basically you've got how much watts for how much cubic, you know, millimeters, inches, centimeters, however you want to measure that, of power in a space. And so SilverStone's been really knocking it out of the park there. And so what does this mean? Well, I was comparing this to a Seasonic SFX unit that has only 650 watts. And so when I was looking at the height and the width, both power supplies came in at 63 millimeters, about 63 millimeters. I think Seasonic said there's a 63 and a half. I mean, how do you even measure a half of a millimeter? Like, is that at least too far? But anyway, I digress. Both of them were about 63 millimeters height, and they had 125 millimeters wide, and that's the normal SFX form factor. However, this is where SilverStone kind of pulled ahead. Seasonic is only running 650 watts, and they still were running a 125 millimeter depth on the particular unit that I saw. And that's just doing a shop for a straight up, hey, SFX power supply, what comes up? This guy is only 100 millimeters deep, so 25 millimeters shorter. It gives that little extra bit of space and makes things quite a bit more manageable when you're trying to build in a small system like that. So Yeah, great little unit. Like I said, I'm a fan of the cables. They even have that 4-pin Sense cable, which from what I read is something that can help deliver more voltage to power-hungry parts when they're demanding it. And I don't know if that's built into every power supply, but it seems like it's something that you only really have if you have extra connectors. Not necessary, might be a nice feature. Hard to say, since without the proper testing equipment and, you know, figuring out why my system won't boot exactly makes that kind of stuff more difficult. But that's all I've got for you guys. I'm going to do a written review of this guy, mainly to cover more pictures so you can get to see more of it in detail and just see the unit up close. And we'll have that overview linked in the description below. But the big factor here is I just wanted to point out that 100mm depth is really nice. It's going to make this guy squeeze into mini ITX cases a lot easier than other power supplies that are typically 125mm depth. And that's a huge advantage here. All right, guys, this has been the Hardware Hound. Thanks for checking in. Catch you later.